Have you ever noticed how some people seem to have an almost supernatural control over the environment around them without saying a word? They do not shout, they do not beg, they simply withdraw. And suddenly, everything changes. The energy shifts, people start to question, to chase after, to feel. Now imagine if you did the same. If you stopped reacting immediately to everything, if you chose silence instead of the automatic response, retreat instead of explosion, what do you think would happen? That is where the point lies. When you stop being always available, emotionally, physically, and psychologically, the world around you goes into crisis because people are used to controlling you through your reactions, through your impulses, and through your predictability. But the day you choose to withdraw, the game changes, and those who thought they knew you realize they know absolutely nothing about you. I have often said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. Now think about this. When you become inaccessible, who really gets desperate? Who gets irritated? Who tries to provoke you just to elicit some emotion back? This reveals more about the other than about you. And it mainly reveals how much you are still being manipulated without realizing it. You keep giving yourself to please, to maintain peace, to not lose people who, deep down, were never really with you. And with every forced yes, every immediate response, and every emotional reaction, you give away a piece of your energy. At the end of the day, what is left? Tiredness, frustration, and an emptiness you cannot explain. It is because you are too available for those who do not deserve even a minute of your silence. This is not about turning your back on the world. It is about choosing yourself. It is about learning what I call individuation, the process of becoming whole, authentic, and complete. This process begins when you understand that silence can be stronger than 1,000 arguments. That withdrawal, when it comes from awareness and not from escape, is an act of power. How long will you continue to be controlled by the emotions of others? How long will you react like a puppet every time someone pokes your wound? Maybe it is time to cut those strings, to withdraw, to become a mystery. Because when you stop being available, everything changes. You have been taught to always be present, to respond quickly, to please, and to say yes, even when you wanted to say no. Since childhood, you have been conditioned to believe that your worth lies in how available you are to others. But here is a truth. This excessive availability is not a virtue. It is a prison. As long as you continue to think that you need to be accessible all the time, you will be manipulated, drained, and forgotten as soon as you are no longer useful. Being always available makes you seem predictable, and everything that is predictable becomes a tool. People start to use you as an emotional emergency button. They press it when they want attention, relief, or validation, and then they put you back on the shelf. I have spoken at length about the persona, this mask we wear to be accepted, loved, and recognized. It is exactly this mask that keeps you overly available. You say it is okay when you are suffocating. You respond to messages immediately, even when you are exhausted. You explain yourself, justify yourself, and defend yourself as if you owe something to the world. But the truth is that the more you place yourself at the center of others' stage, the more you disappear from your own. Being available all the time is a subtle form of self-abandonment. It is a disguised way of seeking approval and avoiding rejection. But this control comes at a price, and the price is your peace. It is your vital energy being distributed as if it were infinite, when in fact, it is very limited. People who want you available all the time, in fact, do not want you. They want what you provide: validation, company, distraction, and emotional comfort. When you change, when you set a boundary, when you refuse to react, those same people get irritated. They accuse you. They say you are weird. It is not because you changed. It is because you stopped being functional for them. The more available you are, the less value others give you, because what is too abundant becomes an emotional rag. No one respects what they do not have to earn. No one values what is always there.
We must understand psychic energy. Our mind is like an energy system, and every thought, emotion, and action consumes a part of that energy. The question is, are you choosing where your energy goes, or are you letting the world decide for you? Every time you react impulsively, you are wasting psychic energy. When you defend yourself against a criticism that did not even deserve attention, when you respond to a provocation just to prove you are right, you are spending your inner strength on what does not nourish you. That which you resist persists. The more you react, the more you bind yourself. A healthy psyche is one that knows how to keep energy within the system. This means knowing how to say no without guilt, knowing how to remain silent without feeling cowardly, and knowing how to observe before acting. True power is not in reacting, it is in choosing when and how to act. How many times have you lost sleep over an unresolved conversation? How many times have you spent hours ruminating on what you should have said? This is energy being drained without return. You are keeping alive ghosts that should have died long ago. Psychic energy is like a force field. When well guarded, it creates presence. You enter a room and command respect without saying a word. But when poorly managed, you become invisible, reactive, and fragile. The world has no mercy for those who give in easily. Therefore, start observing your own triggers. What makes you react automatically? What makes you lose your center? These are the exact points where your energy escapes. You need to work not to become cold or indifferent, but to be selective and sovereign over yourself. When you conserve your energy, you break the projections that others place upon you. Most of your emotional responses are programmed. Those who understand this manipulate you easily. Opportunistic people do not need to raise their voices or force situations. They just trigger the buttons you have left exposed. Projection is the psychological mechanism through which people project onto others what they cannot see in themselves. While others project onto you, you also become the receptacle for these images. The more emotionally available you are, the more you become a blank canvas for these projections. The most effective manipulation does not happen in shouting, it happens in the silence of guilt. When you feel that you owe something to the other, even when it destroys you inside, you are being controlled. But when you stop reacting, the game breaks. When you start saying no, responding with silence, and withdrawing instead of explaining yourself, the projections begin to crumble. The mask they put on you falls. This leaves people unsettled because they no longer know who you are, and worse, they are forced to look at themselves. Your unavailability is a threat because it forces others to confront their own emptiness. We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. When you withdraw, when you stop feeding the cycle, the other's shadow begins to emerge. This is unbearable for those who have always used you as an escape. Are you ready to deal with the discomfort of being misunderstood, rejected, or even attacked for protecting yourself? Are you ready to endure the silence that comes after the rupture? It is precisely in that silence that a new kind of power is born. The modern world is noisy. Everyone wants to be heard, wants to respond quickly, and wants to win pointless debates. But there is a power in conscious, strategic, and brutally lucid silence. The kind of silence that is not absence, but amplified presence. Silence allows for lucidity, and lucidity is dangerous for those who live to control you. Have you noticed how some people panic when you do not respond? It is not because they miss you. It is because your silence takes away their narrative control. While you speak, you are still in the game. When you are silent, you change the rules. True silence is mastery over one's own energy. It is the refusal to be dragged down by someone else's emotions. Individuation requires this distancing because only in silence can you listen to yourself without the world's interference. Silence has a price. It will distance you from people who only valued you for the role you played. It will make you incomprehensible to those who only saw you through their own projections. But each sentence is an energetic investment, and not everyone deserves access to your truth. Sometimes silence is not retreat, it is sovereignty.
Awareness without action is just another form of self-deception. True transformation begins when you firmly decide to become selective. This requires emotional discipline. Conscious unavailability is not about being cold. It is about no longer being accessible to anyone at any time for any reason. It starts with small actions, not responding immediately, breathing before reacting, and leaving a discussion before being dragged into chaos. You do not need to justify your absence. You do not need to explain your silence. You owe nothing to anyone but yourself. Every process of individuation goes through isolation. Not a depressive isolation, but a sacred one. A time of inner retreat where you relearn to listen to your own voice. Observe who starts to distance themselves from you when you become more reserved. Observe who tries to provoke you when you stop reacting. These are not signs that you are wrong. They are proof that you have begun to free yourself. You have spent your life being conditioned to put yourself second. It is natural that change causes discomfort. When you stop being available to everyone, first comes an uncomfortable silence. But gradually, this silence transforms. It begins to cleanse, to calm, and to heal. Then comes solitude, not the solitude of absence, but the solitude of total presence, the solitude of the strong. In that space, clarity enters. Where there was once anxiety, peace enters. You are not fleeing the world, you are returning to yourself. You cease to be shaped by circumstances and begin to shape your reality from within. You will lose people, but you will find yourself. You will distance yourself from places, but you will reconnect with your essence. You will become misunderstood, but finally, you will begin to be respected. When you are no longer available for anything, you become valuable, rare, and unforgettable. This is a rebirth. It is the start of a life where you are no longer available for emotional crumbs or mind games. Now, you only accept what resonates with your peace, your truth, and your wholeness. Being loved means nothing if, for that, you have to abandon yourself. True self-love begins when you choose yourself, even if it costs you to be alone for a while.